And I see the recording is starting. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Michael. Today, just before we get started, some information that our virtual pitch event is going to be recorded today. So just make sure that you're okay with that. If not, you can always catch up later. We will be circulating the details after the event. Also, be aware that your questions that you pose in the Q&A session, they will also be recorded in the chat messages as well. We'll be downloading those and saving those at the end. They'll be available to you. So welcome to the GEO LDN Technology Innovation Competition. Just 1 second while I try to mute. We hear some background information or background noise. And yeah, welcome to you all. I want to, before we really get started, just go over some of the technical features here in our session today. You have the option of listening in French or Spanish, if that's more convenient for you. You just need to go to the symbol. You should see it at the bottom of your screen, that little globe symbol. Click on that and you will see the language options available to you, and just click on the respective language that you'd like to listen to. We have our interpreter team here working very hard behind the scenes, just to interpreting the English into French and Spanish. So we do not have Chinese here available. That's just a screenshot from another session. Also, in terms of usability, we want to make sure you are able to use the text chat. So what I'd like you to do now is to activate the text chat by clicking the chat icon, and then in the text chat window, please make sure it's all panelists and attendees. You have a little drop-down segment there. And what I'd like you to do is just type how to say hello in your local language, and then also tell us where you're joining us today from. So we see here, hola, from Anna. Merhaba, Murat. Guten Morgen, Astrid. Guten Morgen. Bonjour. Guten Morgen. So we really get a great, and wonderful. Habari zenu. Savarika. Great, welcome to you all. Bonjour. Hola. Wonderful. All right. So thank you. Hello, Franz. Yeah, just a couple more technical details here. I see a lot of you are pretty fit with the text chat. During our session today, we're going to be using the Q&A window a lot. You can activate that by clicking on the icon Q&A. You see that indicated by the red arrow there. If you are an attendee, you can ask questions in the Q&A. However, if you're a competitor with a speaking role, or if you're an expert, you're one of our so-called panelists, and you can only answer questions in the Q&A. So please, of course, only answer questions that are directed at your particular project, at your particular team, and please be concise both with your questions and with your answers. We're under a little bit of time pressure today to get everything in within the 2 hours we have. And panelists can also use the participants panel to raise their hand. So if you open the participants panel that's indicated by the green arrow, you can, next to your name, you see the option there of raising your hand. So that's also available to you if you'd like to make a comment or if you'd like to intervene at some point. So our greetings are still coming in. So I don't read Arabic, but I assume it's a marhaba, perhaps. Thank you. That. If you are an attendee, we have several options as well. You have more simplified options. You can contribute in the text chat. Hi. You can contribute in the text chat there. You can raise your hand by clicking on the raise your hand. And as I mentioned, you can ask questions in the Q&A. And thank you, Astrid, for demonstrating the hand raising. So I'm going to, we're going to go to a little icebreaker just to get you in the mood, to help you relax and enjoy our meeting, set you in the right frame of mind. I know a lot of creative people here today, and I'm going to show you an image. And what I want you to do is to guess. Let your imagination run wild to guess what this image is. So maybe it's a dog or a cat, or maybe you see an island, or whatever you want, whatever you see in the image. And I want you to just very spontaneously type what you see in the text chat, and this image will come into focus over time. But be spontaneous. Just what is your best guess here? What do you see? What do you see? Please type your answer in the text chat. What could you see? Maybe if you squint your eyes, it'll be a little clearer. So Hilda sees pixels, a face. Yeah, we do see some maybe skin tones there. Yeah, maybe a face. What else? Friends are hugging. Mud with a flower. Okay, let me bring this into a little bit more focus. What do you see now? Cloth pattern. Marian sees a cloth pattern. What else? Coming into a little bit more focus. Yes, we see our scientists there with a very objective view of what's going on here. A face is coming into focus, perhaps, for some of you. Anything clearer, anything more defined? So we see a map of Italy, perhaps. Still nothing. Okay, let's take a look. Let's bring it into a little bit more focus. A face with red hair, a head with red hair. Could be a drum. Murat sees a drum, and let's bring it into even more focus now. And plane engine Adam sees, and oh, somebody sees a ball. An armrest ball. Yes, and yes, as you can see, this is a baseball. The baseball is a kind of our metaphor for our pitch today, a virtual pitch. And we wish all of you the best of luck and all the success. Of course, when you pitch a ball, the object is to get the batter to hit it. And we hope you hit your pitch results in the ball being hit right out of the stadium, with a high degree of success. So good luck to all of you today in our session. And just to give you an idea of what's going on today, we'll start off with some welcoming remarks from some panelists and experts today, a brief introduction to the competition, just to remind you. Then we will get to the pitches, the 10-minute pitches. They will each be followed by a Q&A and feedback rounds. Towards the end, we'll have a general Q&A, and that will be followed by our wrap-up, where we conclude with what's going to happen next, some general feedback from you on the session today, and of course some recognition for your efforts. So that's what you have to look forward to. And we'll start off with the support team. I'll go against the rules and not do ladies before gentlemen. I'll introduce myself because I'm speaking. My name is Michael Tai, and I'm the facilitator for today. And with that, I'm going to pass over the microphone to Anna.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Anna Marx. I am an independent consultant supporting the GEO LDN competition, in particular the evaluation process. I have a bit of a secretariat and coordination role. Wishing you all the best for the presentations today. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. And we'll go to Sarah. Sarah.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sara Minelli. I am a program officer at the Secretariat of the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. I will have a chance for some welcoming remarks very soon, so I will just pass it over now.
Thanks, Sarah. And then we'll move over to Astrid. Astrid.
Hi, good morning. My name is Astrid Möller, and I'm a human-centered design expert, and I'm supporting this competition. And maybe you know me from the video on the GEO LDN competition website. And if not, please have a look at the video.
Thanks very much, Astrid. Yes, let's move now to the welcoming remarks from Douglas Cripe from GEO and
yes,
Doug, take it away.
Good day, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. Welcome to this virtual pitch in the context of the GEO LDN competition. I'm very pleased with the work that's been done, and I'm looking forward to hearing your virtual pitches. Some of you might be wondering what the GEO is in this in the title here, the GEO LDN competition. So I'm here to tell you just a little bit about that. As the slide notes, I'm the Senior Scientific Advisor at the Secretariat for GEO, the Group on Earth Observations. We can go to the next slide. Some of you probably are not aware of what GEO is, and just to kind of set the stage here, GEO is called the Group on Earth Observations, and it represents a global partnership of governments and organizations that envisage a future where decisions and actions for the benefit of humankind are informed by coordinated, comprehensive, and sustained Earth observations. And when we talk about Earth observations, we mean anything, any platform that observes the Earth, whether that be satellite observations, in situ, ground-based, marine, aircraft, any of those types of platforms that would tell us something about the Earth. And GEO was started in 2005, so it's been going for over a decade now. If we go to the next slide, the mission of GEO is to connect the demand for sound and timely environmental information with the supply of data and information about the Earth that is collected through observing systems that are made available by the GEO community. And so in so doing, GEO works to unlock the power of Earth observations by facilitating their accessibility and application to global decision-making within and across many domains. So now maybe the context is a little clearer as to why we've been working with UNCCD, an organization that participates in GEO, to bring Earth observations to monitoring frameworks for the SDGs, and in this particular case, 15.3.1. So that's my my welcoming introduction. If we go to the next slide, I just want to thank profoundly the experts who have been supporting us in the evaluations of the proposals. As you can see, they come from all over the globe, and I think we have a few online who are going to be observing the virtual pitch. So if you'd like to know more about these individuals, you can go to the GEO LDN webpage. I think the URL for that will be coming up in a few slides. So thank you, welcome once again, and back to you, Michael.
Okay, thanks very much, Doug. Yes, we'd also like to welcome, of course, the jury panel who've been working very hard behind the scenes, and more of them a little bit later. But yeah, welcome to all of you today, and yeah, immense thanks to you for the hard work you've been doing. And again, more information on the jury panel on the GEO LDN site. I'm going to pass on now to Sarah. Sarah, you'd like to tell us a little bit more, so go ahead.
Thank you, Michael. Yes, on behalf of the UNCCD, I would like to say just a few words on the importance that this competition has for the convention and for its signatory countries. As of today, we have over 120 countries that have committed themselves to set land degradation neutrality target under SDG indicator, under SDG 15. And out of these, 60 have actually already endorsed those targets. There is a growing understanding of the importance of the central role of land use planning in achieving land degradation neutrality. If we can optimize what we do where, then we think we can bring the land back into balance and through this, in turn, achieve multiple benefits. Recognizing that there is a technical gap for an effective implementation of land degradation neutrality, the UNCCD Conference of the Parties have requested the UNCCD Science Policy Interface to stimulate the development of a demonstration of how LDN or a neutrality mechanism can be embedded in existing land use planning tools. And so this is what the competition is addressing. It's trying to address precisely this technical gap, while at the same time encouraging innovation, collaboration, and coordination around LDN. We're very happy for the broad participation that we've got so far in the competition. And I just would like to take the occasion to thank everyone involved, especially jury member, the expert in the expert committee, and obviously the participating team for their important contribution to this process.
Thanks, Sarah. And yeah, speaking of contributions from all over the world, we've got Neil coming in from Australia. Neil, would you like to give us a brief introduction about the competition?
Thanks, Michael, and g'day everyone. So my name's Neil Sims, and my day job is at CSIRO in Australia, where amongst a few other things, I led the writing of the Good Practice Guidance Report for SDG Indicator 15.3.1 on land degradation. I'm a co-chair, one of 3 co-chairs in the GEO LDN initiative with Antje Hechelchen and Amos Kaboba. And along with Alex Zvolev from Conservation International, I lead Working Group 3 in the initiative, which focuses on supporting data analytics systems for LDN. Next slide, please, Michael. And so amongst the key tasks of Working Group 3 are these 2 things. We want to establish an open user community and develop open source tools and methods. And we want to support the planning, implementation and monitoring of actions to achieve LDN from Earth observation and other data sources. And this competition really addresses both of those. We're building a community right here. That's you on the call right now. So thank you very much for joining us. One of the key objectives of the competition is to ensure that potential users of the tools are involved in the development of them right from the start of the process. And so this is why we insisted that every proposal had to have end users and technical developers on their team, and also why we engaged Astrid Müller, who's an expert in human-centered design, to provide perspectives on the proposals and also to be a resource for teams to increase their end user relevance and engagement. So please do get in touch with Astrid as you move through this competition if you're lucky enough to do that. Next slide, please, Michael. So the response has really been fantastic to this competition, and we received 23 entries with participants from 36 countries and on every continent. That's a fairly global effort. So each of the entries has really a unique perspective on the key challenge we're trying to address here, which is really to develop software tools to help countries achieve the neutrality part of LDN. We've got a really fantastic jury. It's been a great pleasure to work with everyone on this team. And some really knowledgeable technical experts that have assessed all of the proposals according to the criteria that we set in the rules. And I want to congratulate every one of the 7 teams who have made it to this second phase of the competition, which is the virtual pitch event. And we're really excited to hear from you all in 2 sessions over the next few hours. So the funding for this competition is being very generously provided by the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, and also the Syngenta Soil Leadership Academy. And the winners of the competition will receive support to help them develop their proposed tool into one that is operationally used to integrate LDN into land use planning in many countries around the world. To me though, and the reason I do this and many of us do this on our own time, is because the great opportunity really here is to have a global impact on an issue of critical importance to the sustainability of our environment and to the benefit of the livelihoods of millions of people worldwide. So I really wish you, every team, all the best of luck. And I'm looking forward to seeing the proposals tonight. So thanks very much. Back to you, Michael.
Okay, thanks very much, Neil. Yes, we're all very excited about your pitches. And so now a couple guidelines as to the procedure of the pitches, which will be coming up right after this. First of all, as you know, you have exactly 10 minutes to present. We will give you a little warning a couple minutes before the end of your presentation, but that's a hard time frame. We will be very strict with that. After the presentation, we will have a 5-minute experts question round that will be followed by 2 minutes jury questions, and again using the Q&A and using voice, and then after that 3 minutes for the attendees to pose their questions using the Q&A. Remember, the time frame is tight, so please be very succinct with your questions and comments. We would really appreciate that, helping us keep on time throughout our session. So today we're going to hear 4 pitches, proposal F, J, M, and N. And so 4 all in all. Again, 10 minutes for each for the pitch, 10 minutes for the Q&A period. And we're going to start with proposal F. The team lead is Claudio. And Claudio, are you ready? Just tell me when you want to advance the slides, unmute your microphone, perhaps turn on your video camera. And
yes. Hello.
say in English, break a leg.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine, Claudio.
Okay, so can I go?
You can go.
Okay, so good morning to the members of the jury, to the panelists, to the attendees. Can I see the next slide, please? Still don't see it. Okay. Our team is made of researchers based in India, in Korea, and in Italy. I'm the team leader. Dr. Gaur of Kasri is the representative of our stakeholder groups. Dr. Kim of Seoul University is the technical implementation leader. And Dr. Shukla and Gupta, the co-implementers, are based in 2 highly reputed Indian institutes. We also have a senior advisor, Dr. Ajay. Next, please. The team has very good experience and expertise. Well, I've been long time engaged in desertification research and UNCCD indicator selection processes. The technical implementation leader is a high-level expert in remote sensing and geoinformatics with experience in many application fields. The co-implementers are very skilled in geoinformatics and software development. They are young, talented researchers, and they are supported by the state-of-art capacities and facilities of the Indian Institute of Technology. And then we have 2 very senior experts to secure the tool relevance and soundness. Mahesh is an expert in land degradation mapping, but also in charge of programs working with rural communities. Ajay has been much involved in desertification mapping, but also in several UNCCD initiatives. Next, please. Lack of information may make it difficult to implement the LDN framework. In fact, information on current land degradation often is available only at low resolution. It does not address off-site impacts, such as dust emission. As you see in the pictures below, you can have on-site, you can have rangeland degradation, and this can contribute to severe impacts off-site, as an example by feeding dust storms. Another issue is that there is no accepted method to anticipate the future land degradation. Our final users will be the national, subnational entities in charge for planning land use under LDN. They need support to set LDN targets and to prioritize degraded land to be taken up for restoration under LDN and to plan their budget every year. Next, please. Our tool will integrate the LDN mechanism into land planning, and in addition to that, will bring in dust emission and dust storm reduction into LDN target setting, and this will be a unique capacity of our tool, we believe. The tool will integrate
Yes, Claudio.
future change. Yes?
I'm sorry, Claudio, there was a slight dropout. Go ahead.
Can I go ahead? Okay.
Yes, please.
The tool interface will allow users to identify current land degradation and related offsite impact, dust emission notably, anticipate the future ones, simulate the effects of SLM interventions, and generate impact scenario maps. LDN trade-offs are also considered. The tool will mainly address those based, let's say, related to the biophysical matrix that the tool will generate, but stakeholders will also add and bring their additional perspectives. Next, please. Okay, look at the figure to the left. This shows how the tool works. We have 4 boxes: trend health, tool modules, interface, and expert knowledge. The tool modules will process the data, generate information layers for land degradation and dust emission, both current and future. By comparing the two, we derive the new expected land degradation. Note that the current land degradation layer is derived from trend earth, but complemented with finer scale, locally relevant indicators as suggested, recommended by the LDN framework. This information is necessary for LDN planning, not enough. Land is not homogeneous in terms of resilience, vulnerability, SLM performance. So we need expert knowledge. The tool interface will integrate expert knowledge to set appropriate planning units. Then, using the same model engines, the user interface will allow users simulate the impacts of SLM implementation in terms of land degradation and dust emission, and generate scenario maps of gains and losses of land capital by land use type, like for like. So the users can optimize the allocation of SLM, so do the right thing in the right place, also considering the impacts of dust emission reduction, so the offsite too. Next slide, please. The tool meets all requirements in terms of software engineering. It is fully based on open access libraries. It is easily interoperable with tools based on similar standards. It is connected with trend earth because it uses trend earth output and because the software is compatible. So the two tools could be, let's say, easily linked together, integrated. Next slide. The tool also meets all requirements in terms of data management. It protects sensitive data, and it incorporates the procedures to do that, and it complies with all the FAIR principles. This is detailed in the slide. I assume the slide is also there for reviewer to check it afterwards. So I will go to the next slide, please. We do have a detailed work plan. As you see in the figure to the left, we would start next week, but this is up to you, to develop the first prototype to be ready mid-December for the sneak preview workshop. Then in phase 0, in blue in the figure, we start making the full prototype. We will have it ready to show as a demo at the CREEK meeting. Then we'll finalize it by March. This is our plan. In phase 1, we test the prototype. In phase 2, we develop a full functional system. And then in phase 3, we test it over the target area that will be located in the Thar Desert region of India, which is a high priority region in the Indian political agenda. Finally, phase 4 is devoted to documentation and distribution. The figure to the right shows the interactions among the partners. It is a loop. We can say that in each phase we have a loop. All the partners interact according to their competencies, and our key user, Kazri, is involved in co-designment in each phase. And as you see in the figure to the left again, during phase 2, we have further stakeholder engagement and capacity development. This is because here we need to actually engage the stakeholder groups that will be involved in testing in the target area, and they will need specific training. And so we will start capacity development for them to be able to interact with the tool and with us to complete this tool co-design with the users. And the next slide.
You have 2 minutes left.
Yes, but this is my left, my last slide. So I'm making it. And so this is an example of applications of some of the tool components to a site in Mongolia. This slide is just to stress that we are not starting from scratch. Of course, there is work to do, but most of the tool components are already tested and functional. And what we need to do is to refine them and to adapt them to the needs of the users, to the new user group in India. That we already started working with them, but much work is still to come. So to adapt to their needs, to assemble the tools to create the overall data and information flow, and then of course to develop the user interface, and that will require much input from all the stakeholders. And with this, I have finished, and I maybe will leave some other aspects to the answer to the questions. Okay, thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Claudio, and thank you for keeping within the time frame. That's excellent. I'm going to pass on the microphone now to Sarah, who's going to be taking care of the Q&A session with the experts. So let me just advance that. So first of all, just as a little reminder, 5 minutes exactly for experts' questions. So Sarah.
Yes, since this is the first question and answer session, let me also remind before we start that attendees can post their question through the Q&A window. We will take those questions, at least one or two at the end, after going through the expert and the juries. So for the attendees, that's your way of contributing. But I will first give the floor to the expert, those who are part of the expert committee for the competition. I would ask you to prioritize questions and keep any comments or suggestion for improvement of the tool for the evaluation report. We will have a chance to provide the feedback to the teams. And so please, very concise and very focused question from our expert. You can take the floor by just raising your hand, and then I will give you the floor.
If I may, just a quick note to the audience in general. When you have, now we've only assisted, have only seen one proposal, but in general, please indicate the proposal's letter when you write your question so that we can properly address it. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. I see that we have a question from Mariam. Mariam, you have the floor.
Yes, hello, thank you. I hope that my micro is fine now.
Very good, Mariam.
Before. It's a little low, but we can hear you.
Okay, so many thanks to the presenter. There were quite a few questions which I had, which have been addressed now in the presentation. I have one question regarding the involvement, engagement of stakeholders. How will new stakeholders be identified? The presenter just informed us that the tool has to be adapted to new conditions. These are old pieces which have to be brought together, which already function. And in this process, you may realize that you need new stakeholders to design it and to monitor and to implement and to monitor. Yes, so this is my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mariam, for the question. We'll try to be brief. Okay, we have a key user, which is CASRI. CASRI is an institute which has been long time, had a central role in desertification studies and also in the land restoration in the TAR region. So it has been involved in all the decision-making processes. However, we assume that CASRI will probably not remain our, let's say, not to say only user, but not necessarily the central user, because we assume that if we go on, we present the demo to the CREEC meeting, and if you allow us to continue and you select us, I'm sure the Indian government will put eyes on our proposal and will possibly indicate additional users, agencies, national and sub-national agencies that should be taken on board. So this will be a first phase of enriching our, let's say, stakeholder board or platform. And then during the phase two, in preparation of testing in the area, we will go down to the grassroots level, because we will need to involve representative of civil societies, of the communities. That will be to really to fine tune the tool to the ground. I hope I've been clear enough.
Thank you, Claudio. Let me see if we have any other questions from the experts. If not, then I would pass on the floor to our jury members as well to ask any question for our proposal F. I see we have a raised hand from Ermias. So Ermias, still as an expert, you have the floor.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah, and thanks, presenter. I have one question. Would you really tell us how this tool is going to have a good interface with TrendEarth? Because, you know, this is a different thing, and then you are a different software. Would you give us a little bit of highlight how you are going to integrate these tools together? Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Ermias. Well, in terms of logical connection, I think it is possibly clear. So we will use the output of TrendEarth to, I mean, that will drive our, let's say, be the base for our current land degradation layer. In terms of software engineering, well, I will try to answer in a satisfactory way. My colleague Jungrak should be there as a panelist, I hope, so just in case he can complement. And so our tool, we will base on software which is based on libraries that are the same libraries used by the QGIS GIS software. And we know that also TrendEarth is developed as an add-on of the QGIS software. So there is a common, let's say, software engineering basis, let me say, and this will allow operational linkage between the two. I can arrive up to this point. If you want to know more, I hope my colleague Jungrak will be there to answer. He is the expert in that.
Okay, can I append a few words?
Yes, very briefly. Thank you very much.
So I think so we will develop basically so all components as a plug-in component of QGIS. So it will keep the industrial standardization, and then we can easily accommodate any kind of end user requirement into interface. That's why you also closely working Indian KAJI. So no problem at all to implement all of the user requirement into user interface. That's clear. Okay.
Thank you very much. So since I don't see questions from attendees in the Q&A, I would give now the floor to Doug as a jury member to ask his question.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. So the proposal is very impressive. You know, it's been developed over Mongolia. Now you're proposing to go to the Thar Desert to further expand. One of the criteria of the impacts is the readiness for global uptake. And I know that you've addressed how You're hoping within India that there will be an uptake and expansion across India. But could you say something as to how you would see this being taken up as a tool that anyone around the globe could use?
Yeah, this is a very good question. We are aware of this point, which is tough in our case. It is tough because, of course, this tool is strongly based on models, and the models must be adapted, calibrated, validated to be transferred. This we are very aware of that. But on one side, we are planning with the Indian government to expand the calibration of the models to other territories in India. And on the other side, on the side of tool structure and architecture, we are organizing a modular structure, and we will make sure that different modules can be substituted by variants. So we will provide full documentation for the users to fully understand the concept and the structure of each module, and to be able to adapt the modules to their needs by developing software variants. And we will provide assistance. It will be our let's say our pleasure to assist them in that. But of course, that will be not a quick process because of the nature of the tool. And of course, we are aware of that.
Thank you, Claudio. I see we still have maybe 1 minute. So I would take the last question. I think the first one who had raised his hand was Gilberto. So Gilberto, you have the floor.
Thanks, many thanks to the presenter. I hope you are listening well. Are you planning to use any kind of collaborative environment to engage the free and open source community for GIS?
Well, this I would leave this to my colleague Jungrak. Jungrak, are you listening to this? Can you answer this question?
Yeah, can you repeat the question once more?
Yes. Are you planning to use any kind of collaborative environment to engage the free and open source community of development of GIS tools?
I'm not so sure I exactly understand your question, but we are actively engaged in local collaborator in GIS society in terms of the system environment, because we need some kind of parameterization, also validation. We first distribute all kind of validation tool to local investigator, and we'll get the feedback. We'll update all of parameter or monitoring system accordingly. So I'm saying the collaboration with the local investigator in any place, in any world, has no problem. You're already making the extensive network worldwide. The Mongolia in China, India, the Bangladesh, all over. So we already have experience. I hope this is the answer to your question. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, everyone. We ran out of time. I see we have also one raised hand from the attendees, but unfortunately, I have no time to take any other question. I would ask all attendees to ask their question in written form for the next session. Michael, over to you again.
Thank you, and I'll pass on the
very good. Thank you very much. So we will hear next from Proposal J. The team leader is Hilda Manzi. Hilda, once again, please be mindful of the 10 minutes, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Next slide. So I'm the team leader and the technical lead in Geospatial Research International with other members. We have, sorry, go back to the, yes, thank you. Go back. Sorry, please go back to the slide. Yes. We have our national stakeholder, the Kenya Forestry Service, that is currently one of the members in the LDN national target, represented by Jamlek Dambiri. Next slide, please. Our team relevant experience cast across having members in agriculture, environment, water, GIS, and remote sensing. And we believe in having developed tools that can be adopted at the local level to aid in sustainable development. And one of our key focus is to ensure desired results, where actually you can be able to have a back and forth movement where you have flexibility and you can be able to work with the local community to get the desired results. Our experience for relevant to this assignment cuts across the various projects that we have been carried out. We just listed a few. We are currently involved in modeling mangrove socioeconomic role with the IUCN. We have done forest ecosystem service variation tools for Kenya Forestry Service in Kenya. We have had the opportunity to work with GMES as highlighted there, so that we can be able to develop other observation-based socioeconomic valuation tools for degraded lands and wetlands. We have also done small-scale earth observation, crop monitoring, management, and marketing tools in some areas in Kenya. Next slide, please. So the biggest question we have today is why SUMVES? SUMVES is something that is born of to be able to strike a balance between important yet conflicting land uses. We are looking at assisting decision makers to bring a counterbalance, especially where anticipated losses come in on where gains are being looked at. We have worked out trade-offs so that we can be able to ensure human needs are satisfied, and at the same time, we can be able to maintain ecosystem functions. What are the user perspective we are looking at? We are looking at policy decision makers. We are looking at relevant stakeholders. We are looking at researchers. We are looking at scientists, people that can be able to bring insight into economic, cultural, and ecological understanding between competing land uses to better aid in decision making. Next slide, please. So what is this tool? The SUMVES concept, I'd like to say, is born of the challenges that we have found in 3 competing land uses, that is conservation, agriculture, and development in most developing countries. And our focus has been, a lot of land use planning tools have been done, but a bit of challenge has been able to accommodate the objectives or the preferences of the stakeholder. That is something that this tool intends to address. We are looking at addressing the challenges of monitoring qualitatively and quantitatively the assessment of land-based natural capital. That is something we intend to have to look at into this tool that we are calling SUMVES. So for us, it's being able to come up with ecological, social, and physical benefits to human well-being, maximizing on them, and usually making sure that we minimize on the losses. How do we do this scientifically? We are looking at spatial decision support system using GIS and remote sensing and integrating Earth observation data. How do we consider the 3 global indicators in the LDN mechanism? We have the suitability mapping that brings out the objective attribute-based mapping, where we get products such as suitability maps, where we get products such as preference maps. This integrated with ecosystem service valuation products, where trade-off analysis and cost-benefit analysis have been carried out through scenario building of various management options. Then we are in a position to come up with a product that ensures land degradation neutrality. If I focus a little bit on the trade-offs, I'd like to stipulate that in this tool, we have twofold trade-off analysis. First of all, we are looking at the site suitability mapping. When you carry out a site suitability mapping, you do ranking and weighting, where you're focused on social, physical, and ecological perspective. You are able to pick options that can work well. And then again, you move to ecosystem service valuation, where you do a trade-off in terms of the cost-benefit analysis. You input ecosystem perspective. One thing I'd like to state out is that when you're carrying out this ecosystem service valuation, you're doing it on management options that you have been able to do during scenario building. You're looking at the current state, you're looking at the future state, and being able to come up with scenario building where sustainable land management options have been factored in, and that bringing out the economic perspective where most stakeholders actually focus on, and integrate with the social, physical, and ecological perspective. You should be able to get a land degradation neutrality output that can guide any decision maker. Next slide, please. So this actually illustrates the concept of SUMVES. We have the identification of competing land uses. Once you do the identification and you get the appropriate Earth observation data, then you can be able to first do the first LDN level 1, which actually carries out the suitability mapping, looks at the ecological, social perspective. And then once you do that and you get suitability maps and preference maps, you have the scenario building stage in LDN level 2, where you do the sustainable land management decision. You have management options where you have considered any of the competing land uses, whether it's agriculture, whether it's conservation, whether it's development, so that once you do the quantification and do the valuation from the economic perspective and are able to do the trade-offs and do the weighings, you come up with valuation maps, which now when integrated together, you have your final trade-off analysis and you'll be able to get a land degradation neutrality map. Next slide, please. How does SUMVES meet the requirement? This is one of the questions that was highlighted in the evaluation, and would like to say that our SUMVES tool will be developed on the QGIS model builder. With the current software for QGIS, you can be able to actually export that script into Python, and you can further actually adopt it to other open source modeling tools such as GRASS, Saga, GIS. That is our whole intention. And some of the outputs, especially the outputs of the quantification of ecosystem services, can be able to actually fit in or be integrated into the trends.earth QGIS plugin. Next slide, please. How further, there are issues on data protection. And in our country, we have the Data Protection Act that came into 2019. All the years we have developed tools, we have made sure that we stick within any kind of sensitive data and within any frameworks that had been advocated for. We intend to also ensure that all the FAIR principles are followed, ensuring we develop metadata files for each data set, well described, very clear, ensure that it's accessible, authorization and authentication can be done, it's interoperable, can be shared across different platforms by having it in different forums, and ensure that it's also reusable. Next slide, please. So our project plan is a threefold thing. We have the first phase there where we are looking at the prototype development, which is a 12-week thing, so that the final prototype will be ready in the first quarter of 2021. And we are hoping to work with the potential users. We are hoping to work with any technical expertise that can be able to come on board to help us actually adjust and have a good prototype. Then the actual development of the tool should be able to come into play. We are looking at developing a tool within a period of 6.5 months, so that in the third phase, we can be able to have a tool that can be decommissioned, validated, and ready for use by potential users, where training can be done to these people. Next slide, please. So for us, SUMVES is a game changer tool in LDN. And what SUMVES basically means is suitability mapping and valuation of ecosystem services for land degradation neutrality. Degradation is here to stay. How do we manage it sustainably? We believe SUMVES is the tool to watch out for. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hilda. Michael, I will take directly the floor so that we maximize the use of time. And I will ask our experts now to raise their hands for any questions they may have on this proposal. While we wait for the first questions from the expert, I would also ask the attendees to post any question they may have to the Q&A. It seems your proposal was very clear. Now I see the first hand raised by Gilberto. So Gilberto, you have the floor.
Thanks. Could you please just clarify a little bit about how do you plan to have the land use data in this whole architecture?
Thank you for your question. what we are talking about in the data input, where we discuss about having defining competing land uses in a particular area, we'll be using actually Earth observation data to identify in that area what land use types are competing. And those land use types are the only ones that are constrained towards conservation, be it afforestation, agriculture, be it an agro-ecosystem, and be it development, whether it's settlement. So we look at those in terms of the Earth observation data that has been provided. We integrate those in terms of suitability mapping and in terms of ecosystem surveys valuation. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, yes, thanks.
So now, Ermias, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I think my observation is that I'm not sure how suitability in your case is going to help us here, because every land could have suitable for anything. But the most interesting thing is what's happening with existing land use types. That's my take. And then second thing that I'm not sure where we are going to get the cost and benefit data to do a cost benefit analysis. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your question. So we are looking at developing a tool. Actually, we have done part of the bigger part of the prototype model in terms of the ecosystem surveys and the evaluation part of it that could be very tricky. We are looking at, if we are working with the national level stakeholder in any country, they should be in a position to come up with the cost and the benefits that they would want to work with so that they can make an informed decision. So for us, that is where we are looking at to source the data. And we also have other sources that you look at FAO, you look at the kind of figures they bring in. They may be from a global perspective, but if scaled down and through the monitoring process that we have on the ground with the local people that we are working with, we should be able to get enough data sets that we can work with. In terms of suitability mapping, if we look at the context of competing land uses in terms of agriculture, in terms of afforestation and development. Sometimes we have found ourselves, if I can give an example of Kenya in Africa, we have found ourselves where people want to actually remove forests to pave way for a very good development. So for us, we felt it's important to undertake a land use planning where, in terms of attributes, we want to see, can that particular development fit in within that context so that that forest can pave way for that development. So for us, that in terms of suitability mapping is key. And also we are looking at the concept of suitability mapping and preference indicators. What does the stakeholder want to achieve? And as the needs of the stakeholder being looked at by the preference maps. And that's why for us, the suitability mapping was very key.
Thank you very much, Hilda. We still have 1 or 2 minutes for questions from experts. But I see now Alex, our jury member, raised the floor. So Alex, I would give you the floor right now.
Definitely. Thank you, Sarah. And thank you for the presentation, Hilda. Great to see. Is tied a bit actually to the question from Doug to the last proposal. Of course, one of the aspects that we're looking at as a jury is the potential of tools to scale. Can you talk a bit about whether there are particular data sets that this tool would be dependent on that are local, for example, to Kenya, or are there global data sets that could be used? And if not, can you talk a bit about how the tool could integrate local data from outside the project area?
So we have the Earth observation data that is global. We'll use most of the Earth observation data, but in terms of the valuation aspects, when you're looking at the values to assign, when you're undertaking the ecosystem service valuation, in most cases, you have to scale down and integrate with local data. And this will vary from one place to another, depending on what that country wants to achieve in terms of the needs. So it's an input data set where you input, it's not fixed such that it is only for Kenya. It is designed in such a way that if you move to another country, you can be able to input the values that you need to calculate for the ecosystem service valuation. Otherwise, the rest of the data sets are global and this Earth observation data.
Thank you, Hilda. Doug, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for a very interesting presentation. You probably covered this and I missed it, but I wonder if you could just review the co-design process. I mean, how is that going to how is that going to work in the development of this tool?
The co-design process.
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to invite Viola. I don't know whether she's on board. She's quite a good expert in terms of matters to do with design. Viola?
You need to unmute yourself.
I didn't get the question right.
They're asking about the code design process, how it will be done.
Or core design, like how the GEO LDN team will assist in the design, code design or code design?
CODE.
So it's how you're going to involve users in the design of your tool. That was the question.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Viola, please go ahead.
All right, so at the initial stages of the development of the tool, we will have to involve the user, which is KFS in this case, where we will bring their aspects or their user needs as far as the tool will help them in implementing their core mandate, which is the conservation of forests within Kenya.
Okay, since we still have 1 minute for jury's question, I will give the floor to Mariam as an expert to ask her question. And then we have one question from one attendee that I would like to take.
Very much for this very interesting presentation. My question, which I will now be posing, may not only address this presentation per se, but also the other presentation, the previous one. My question is, when going down to local data sets, how will the data quality be ensured? Because of course, there's always data around, but how will it be ensured that the that the data has the quality which is required? Thank you.
Thank you so much for your question. One of the things that we work with and have done before, which we intend to implement in the development of these particular tools, is developing standards that will enable us achieve quality data sets for the outputs that we want to get. So this tool is designed, first of all, to work with existing data sets. We have found that in most developing countries, when you come up with a new set of two data sets that need to be collected, then data quality becomes a problem. So improving on what is existing and working with what is existing for us and developing standards that can be able to assist our partner Kenya Forestry Service in Kenya and any other institution that will desire to use this tool, for us will be able to ensure the data quality standards are adhered to. Thank you.
So Hilda, now I think to conclude, we have one question from an attendee. And the question is, which is the key innovation of SUMVES with respect to similar existing tools?
So you'd find there are quite a number of suitability mapping tools. There are quite a number of ecosystem service tools. So what we are innovating in this SUMVES tool is actually to ensure we are looking at indicators that could have been ignored in other existing tools. We are looking at what can work towards land degradation neutrality, because all these other tools are looking at addressing other issues. But when we bring this tool together, and I believe we do not have a tool that exists that brings both ecosystem surveys and land use mapping together to be able to bring out a trade-off analysis for land degradation. So for us, one, that is in the innovation, and two, we are looking at indicators that could have been missed out, but most of the existing tools, so that we can address land degradation neutrality. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hilda. We still have 1 minute to go. Mariam, you still have your hand up. Do you have any follow-up question, or it's just the question you asked before? I see Antje also raise her hand. So Antje, I will give you a chance for one last question to Hilda.
Yes, thank you. I would just like to follow up on the question on the stakeholder engagement. In your proposal, you wrote that in the Kenya Forest Service has been or will be engaged. So I just wanted to clarify whether they already have been involved in the design of the project proposal. And if yes, what was their main recommendation and requirement for the tool? Thank you.
Thank you so much. So in the development of this proposal, we actually approached Kenya Forestry Service, and we discussed the targets that the national government intends to achieve in terms of the LDN targets actually, and how we can be able to work together to develop a tool that would assist them in that direction. And for us, they were able to tell us one of the biggest challenges they have is ecosystem service valuation. They cannot bring value into what they have in terms of forest. So they told us if you can develop a tool that can not only help in land use planning, but bring out a value that can enable when the debate within the stakeholders comes across, they have a say and a word, because most of the cases they have lost. So we designed this with the ecosystem valuation part of it in mind, because that is one of the inputs the Kenya Forestry Service brought on board. Thank you.
Thank you. I think now we did run out of time. I've seen that Claudio wanted to briefly respond to the question from Mariam. So Claudio,
if you prefer, I can do it now or later in the wrap up, as you like.
You can do it. You can do it now. Let's.
Okay. Very quickly, I agree. The use of the local data is important. As I said, it can be done by preserving the overall quality of the tool output, and there are very good local data. As an example, in India, they developed a concept of resource management domains, and they have maps for that. But this information is not used systematically in land planning. So we want to take this information out and use it because it is essential.
Thank you for your clarity and for a short answer. I think we can now move on to the next proposal. And then
yes.
I'll go to Michael.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and thank you for all your questions and for the answers there, the responses. We're moving on now to proposal M, which fittingly will be led by Murat Durmaz. Murat, are you ready?
Is my voice clear?
Yes, you're perfect.
Okay. Hello, my name is Murat Durmaz, and first I would like to thank.
There is now an echo.
Echo? Better now? No.
I think you're playing hold on, the audio is playing for your slide.
Ah, okay.
Let me ask our technical people, how can we mute the audio to the presentation?
Or we can continue with the audio in the presentation.
Okay, we will, I guess, continue with the audio in the presentation. Excuse me for that. That's a presentation with animations, correct?
No problem.
Okay.
Michael, I do not hear.
Okay, I do. Then what about the others? Can I get some feedback from the others? Do you hear the audio in the presentation when it's running?
No, Michael.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Then, Murat, we'll just go with you doing it live again. It's only me that is the audio, apparently, for some reason.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
So can we go back to the first slide, please?
Yes, I'm sorry for that.
Okay. So first, I would like to thank the support team, the jury members and the experts for all of their guidance and support during the process. I will be presenting our solution to the land degradation neutrality problem called GEO-LDN, and I am the team leader. So next slide, please. So we have representatives from our national stakeholder group, namely Adem Kürşat Özcan and Savaş Karakaya, And the implementers are actually the whole team. So our users are actually the part of the team. And we have Dr. Sultan Kocaman. I guess she is also here. Recep Can, Beste Tavus, and Tuğçe Yanar, and İrem Yıldız. So we are coming from the Hacettepe University Geomatics Engineering Department, and we have an expertise in this field. So next slide, please. So as Geomatics Engineering Department in Hacettepe University, we have extensive knowledge on research and software development. We have an expertise in GIS design, remote sensing, and extensive geospatial data processing and geostatistics. And our national stakeholder group, which is the General Directorate for combating desertification and erosion, they have a long-term experience with land degradation problem, and they are continuing their work on the land degradation neutrality in Turkey. Next slide, please. So as we all know, the land degradation is increasing day by day due to the climate and mostly related to the population growth. And we need to have a neutrality mechanism for this degradation. And we believe that if we have a simulation tool that could predict somehow the land use planning decisions into the future and calculate some land degradation neutralization at that future point, then this tool may be used by city planners, public institutions responsible for planning, or non-governmental organizations to create some kind of trade-offs for the future case when they are making decisions about land use. So this tool may potentially have also a transparent and better view for the future. So that's okay. So, so Easy LDN is actually an open source land degradation neutrality simulation software, and it strongly couples with TransEarth. And the main aim of the tool is to predict for the future what the TransEarth requires to calculate land degradation neutrality, namely the productivity, land cover, and soil carbon. So we are planning to predict or forecast productivity by using deep learning and Earth observations from satellites. So this means mainly the NDVI forecasting into the future. And we are also planning to use Molus open source software, which is using cellular automata to simulate land cover change. So the reporting capability of TransEarth actually is a nicely architected tool, and it currently supports different nations to monitor current land degradation neutrality status. So we are planning to use this tool again by inputting the predicted productivity, land cover, and soil carbon to prepare the state at a future point and create reports for that future point. So next slide, please. So on the left, you see a systems block diagram for our tool. We are planning to have a 3-layered architecture. At the bottom layer, we have a data layer, which includes the local data from the user data repository and Google Earth Engine for remotely sensed data. And in the application layer, we will be integrating NDVI forecasting algorithm written in Python programming language and using Google Earth Engine with the Molus software and TransEarth to provide predictions for the future land degradation neutrality reports. And all of these will be included in a QGIS graphical user interface in the presentation layer. On the right, we just try to give a very highly view of data flow. So we have MODIS or Sentinel and Landsat time series in Google Earth Engine. We will be training an NDVI forecast algorithm from this data set and use the current
I'm sorry, Murat, I can no longer hear you. What about the others?
Okay.
Okay, you're back. Okay.
Yeah.
Continue, please.
Somehow I have been muted. So we will be using the current state of NDVI from MODIS and Sentinel or Landsat, and we will use the trained algorithm to forecast NDVI to be input to the Trans-Earth. And on the right, we will also be training the current land cover and its deriving factors by using potentially local data from the end user. And we will use MOLUS software to train the cellular automata. And then we will use potential plans as current land cover to predict the land cover or simulate it through time to the same point with the NDVI forecast. And then use these outputs and feed them to the Trans-Earth to calculate reports. In this way, we believe that we give a tool to the end user to use the available land use plans and get potential land degradation neutrality outputs from it. And using this as a trade-off, they can choose between different alternative land use plans. Next slide, please. So we are planning the tool will be developed based on the version 2 of GPL license, because we have seen that Trans-Earth and also MOLUS software is derived from this GPL license. We are planning to fork MOLUS software in GitHub and update the tool to work with the recent version of QGIS and our tool and also Trans-Earth. And potentially we may also change some of the algorithms during the course of the project. So we are trying to use somehow Google Earth Engine workspace to share prediction models potentially for the globe, but at least locally share the same NDVI forecasting algorithm between different users. So we are planning to have a modular and design for our software in such sense some part of it may be reused in other software as well. So and in the progress, we are planning to integrate the tool to the Trans-Earth at the software level, because all of the software that I have been talking about is written in Python programming language that has the same versioning with all of the modules. So next slide, please. So I actually talked a little bit about Google Earth Engine, but we are relying Google Earth Engine to read and process the available satellite imagery and also uses metadata capabilities to keep track of which data has been used from remote sensing. We are also planning to use Google Earth Engine for authorization and authentication. However, for the sensitive data, we are planning to store the sensitive data in the personal computer of the end user. Maybe we may also integrate with some kind of metadata search, for example, catalog services for web, or some kind of Open Geospatial Consortium web standard services may be available in the local. So we are planning to integrate them. However, for processing the large amount of data, the tool will automatically partition the work area into chunks and then do the batch processing necessary. Sorry, previous slides, please.
You have 1 minute left.
Okay, so we can continue. So we are planning to spare 1 month for user requirements analysis and system design with our stakeholder and STIP planners and the end users. We will planning to develop the software implemented in 3 months, while our user group is trying to figure out how the verification and validation step will be carried out for the tool. So next slide, please. So this is a very rough view of how verification and validation will be done. So we are planning to use the 10 years of data from Landsat or MODIS satellite imagery to predict for the 2012 and use this outputs with the current outputs of Trans-Earth to compare and verify and validate the algorithm. And actually, we are also planning to use the results for fine-tuning the simulation or prediction algorithms as well. then after we finalize with the project, the tool can be used to forecast for the future and create some kind of land degradation neutrality reports for the future case 10 years. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you, Murat. Yes, I'll hand over the microphone now again to Sarah. You know our ritual by now. 5 minutes expert questions, 2 minutes jury, and 3 minutes attendee questions. Sarah.
So I see already our first request for the floor from Ermias.
Yeah, thank you again. Yeah, my question is, I'm not sure why you would like to do what TrendSERS could do for countries, because TrendSERS already is helping to collect all available information as much as possible in terms of the 3 indicators, whereas you would like to do that. And it sounds to me it's a kind of a verification process. So would you be really happy, this is one of my questions, happy to really rely on TrendSERS, because otherwise I don't see the benefit of linking up with TrendSERS. And then that is a kind of duplication of activity. That is, I would like to comment on that. The second question is, I know you say that, your tool is a kind of a predictive type instead of, monitoring what's happening on a periodic or annual basis. Because if it is for the future, it is interesting for planning. But in terms of really, evaluating progress, I think the tool needs to consider also what's really happening, if possible in the past, what's happening now. And then the scenario is not about land degradation. The scenario is really what's happening, the net loss in terms of LDN. So it's not, that is really interesting. And then if I tell you my own experience in terms of the use of trends in the DVI, there are so many false positives. For instance, if you go to Namibia, if you come to, eastern part of, the Horn of Africa, there is a lot of greening and biomass, but it is just because of bush encroachment, which looks like a green, but it's a green degradation. So I think it would be really interesting also how you are going to consider local context and then, this kind of things into your tools. Thank you very much.
Actually, if I didn't understood wrong, the first question is related to why repeating the procedure of LDN in the tool. Actually, we are relying on the LDN to create reports on land degradation neutrality, not the trending capabilities of transfer. So we are planning to develop a brand new algorithm for predicting NDVI in general, but other indicators as well, to provide let's say prediction as closer to the future reality as much, and then use this future prediction of the inputs and feed it to the LDN so that a familiar report for end users, that the end users are familiar with LDN. So the similar reports will be generated by the tool. So it's just trying to reuse the software LDN for reporting and also maybe fine-tuning the algorithm. For the second question, I agree with you that it's not an easy task to predict the future. So we are planning to use the land use change provided by this simulation tool Molush, incorporated with the NDVI forecasting that we can get as most from the NDVI time series and integrate them to have a better prediction of reality in the future. I hope I could give some clear answer, but maybe my colleague Sultan may add some additional. However, she's not in the panelist section, I guess.
I see we have a lot of hands up from our jury members. So I will move on to the next question from Alex.
Okay.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you for the presentation, Murat. I wondered if you could clarify. So from your diagram, it appeared that the plan is for productivity to be predicted based on past values from the NDVI time series, while land cover will be represented based on, or predicted rather, based on land use plans. Of course, though, productivity will be largely determined by land use and land cover change. Can you talk a bit about whether there's any connection between the land use plans and the productivity outputs from the tool, and then also if there will be any ability to input scenarios into the model?
Yeah, actually, as I said before, we are planning to integrate the simulated results from the land use plans and integrate them with the forecasting of NDVI to produce productivity. So actually, they are not integrated at the end. They are integrated in the forecasting principle as well. Maybe it was not directly clear from the graph, sorry.
Thank you, Murat. Doug, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Murat, for a very interesting presentation. I guess my question is for these predictive variables, and maybe you touched on this and I missed it, but is there a feedback loop for validation of the predictions? You know, and if so, on what kind of data will you be using for that, and what kind of latency will there be?
Actually, so can I answer? Or do you have additional follow-ups?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Sorry. We created a test environment in Sakarya Basin in Turkey, and we will be verifying and validating the algorithm there. And in that sense, we will be using 10 years of time series and use the current tool Trans-Earth output for validating and fine-tuning the stuff. But I guess your question is a little bit more about related to the data assimilation like algorithm. When we start predicting for the future, if we can combine somehow or update the parameters of the simulation software so that it can have a better predictions.
Exactly.
We can consider that, but we didn't let's say consider it for the proposal. But that's a very nice and important concept. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Antje, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. I have a question to the user and stakeholder engagement. And in your slide, I think it was slide 4, on why the tool, you mentioned different types of users. You mentioned city planners, public institutions, and in your consortium, you have the Ministry of Agriculture. So I have 3 related questions. So the first is, who is the user that you intend to have? The second is, how have you assessed the user needs? And the third is, how does the tool address these needs? Because I see, for example, you're using ESA's CCI land cover data for land cover, and I'm wondering how this addresses needs that city planners might have. Thanks.
Thank you. Actually, our team consists of the end user as well. And in our project plan, for the first month, we will be discussing all of these use cases and workflows together with the end user, and they will potentially be providing us the process for an end user. And generally, we are talking about as an end user as city planners, and also the general directorate. And we will be using the land cover and land use data if it is available locally. So that means we will not only rely on remote sensing data or the data available in Google Earth Engine. And for the simulation, we should rely on user data because they are the scenarios created by the end user. However, I agree with you that we need to keep more attention to the data coming from different user parties, because in Turkey, city and regional planners use different tools to create plans, and other parties are using different tools. So we will be creating how a metadata and a project architecture to guide them for preparing the input data. And also this tool will rely on the international standards of metadata in XML format to check the validity for the input.
Thank you, Murat. We have 1 more minute for a question from an attendee, Adnan. The question is, how can the model be built based only on NDVI and land cover land use? What about the other indexes?
Actually, we have looked at the trans-earth calculation of productivity, and the main driving factor is NDVI. That's why I put the NDVI forecasting there. But we are planning to use other indicators and potentially the spatial neighborhood also, and within the tool land cover land use as well, to predict for not only the NDVI itself, but also actually the classes of NDVI to show if we have an improvement or if we have a degradation there. So it's not just trying to predict NDVI as in the case of trans-earth, sorry, but we are trying to predict or classify the future state of productivity, either in 3 classes or 5 classes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think the time is over. And I will pass it on now to Anna to introduce the next team.
Thank you, Sarah. So next we will be hearing from Proposal N. The team leader is Pythagoras Karampiperis. I hope I have pronounced it reasonably. Pythagoras, can you unmute yourself, please? Are you ready?
Yes, I am ready. Thank
Okay,
you,
very
Anna,
good.
for this introduction. So my name is Pythagoras Karampiperis. I will present our pitch for Proposal N. Obviously, the N standing for neutrality, which is a good sign. In a nutshell, we propose a user-centered geoinformatics tool for land use planning towards land degradation neutrality, entitled Loop for LDN. Next, please. Our implementation team, led by SIO, comprises experts in agricultural and sustainable land management, land preservation and conservation, and capacity building for sustainable land management. It also has the support of multiple stakeholder representatives from key regions of interest, contributing with their experience and expertise. Next, please. The implementation team brings together these groups and combines their complementary capacities to face all different aspects of the challenge addressed by Loop for LDN, starting with SIO, a company highly experienced on design and development of data management and analytic solutions for the agri-food, climate and environment domains. SIO will be supported by ICARDA, an international organization undertaking research for development in non-tropical dry areas, VOCAT, a global network on sustainable land management and the primary database for SLM best practices as recognized by UNCCD, the University of Sassari and its Department of Agricultural Sciences, experts on the development and assessment of desertification indicators, and finally, ELD, experts on cost-benefit analysis and capacity building for SLM. Our tool aspires to tackle the challenge of aligning land use and land management decisions with land degradation neutrality goals and the good practice guidelines for the promotion of degraded land SDG indicator. Towards this, our ambition is to facilitate monitoring and decision-making for our targeted user groups, that is, policymakers and advisors, organizations active in land use and land management planning, land users, and research agencies. We will achieve this by formulating complex analysis and forecasting procedures in an intuitive yet scientifically sound manner, allowing them to formulate and evaluate alternative scenarios to optimize their decisions towards land degradation neutrality. Next, please. Loop for LDN integrates LDN into participatory land use planning through a user-friendly interface that helps users formulate and evaluate land use and land management transition scenarios, providing visual representations of impacts such as LD gains, losses, and trade-offs. The approach adopted by the tool is fully consistent with the LDN framework. It makes extensive use of current state-of-the-art solutions as it relies on the global VOCA database. It adopts state-of-the-art methods and knowledge for SLM developed by ELD. It integrates functionalities of GEOC, a tool developed by CARDA that provides advanced similarity analysis of socio-ecological context, and incorporates industry standard open software solutions for its computational assets like QGIS, Jupyter, and GeoServer. To introduce LDN mechanisms into land use planning, Loop for LDN acquires maps of past LD, anticipates future LD, helps users to identify SLM practices to avoid, reduce, or reverse LD best suited to their region of interest, and formulate corresponding scenarios, supporting also users on the valuation and comparison of the multidimensional impacts of such scenarios. Loop for LDN addresses crucial trade-offs in land use management related to land capital and ecosystem services like soil conservation, biodiversity, social cultural impact, climate change mitigation. Using SLM impact information from VOCAT and ELD, the tool will correlate such factors with LM transitions and generate visual impact indicators such as impact maps and spider diagrams. Next, please. The information flow of Loop for LDN is depicted in the present diagram, which illustrates how the information from associated tools, that is, past and current data on land usage and LDN indicators from Trends Earth, SLM approaches and technologies, sustainability criterion indicators from VOCAT, and context similarity and context relevant SLM options from GEOC is integrated and combined with stakeholder knowledge. This information, used for the formulation of transition scenarios, are then evaluated in terms of impacts and trade-offs. The results of the analysis are then presented to the user, stakeholder, who observes and prioritizes trade-offs and decides on the optimized planning scenario. Loop for LDN will use open source technologies and frameworks end-to-end, such as QGIS, Apache Spark, Jupyter technologies, and GeoServer. Our tool is closely linked to Trends Earth, as land usage, land management, and land degradation maps from the latter will be ingested into the Loop for LDN data lake and used throughout the tool's workflow. Loop for LDN will use open and trusted data sources like NOAA and TESA and standard protocols for data publishing. The tool, along with its APIs, will be published under the third version of the GNU General Public License. Thus, its open nature, extensive architecture, and standard compliance ensures its compatibility with any existing and future framework wishing to connect with Loop for LDN. Next, please. Regarding data protection and fair compliance, Loop for LDN will incorporate mechanisms for management of PII, personally identifiable information, which will analyze the examined data and produce reports directed to data managers and indicating the presence of PII in order for the manager to address such issues before publishing the data. Furthermore, all data produced by the tool will be annotated with extensive metadata using standardized control vocabularies and taxonomies like AgroVoc and GeoVoc, thus facilitating their discovery and reuse and ensuring its interoperability with present and future solutions. Next, please. We envision Loop for LDN as a long-term solution with its sustainability strengthened by its development on top of widely supported open tools and data sources. Additionally, the tool fits in the broader agendas and missions of all Loop for LDN partners who have a long history of activity in the field and are involved in several joint projects and initiatives that will provide support for the tool's maintenance and expansion. Finally, Loop for LDN involves collaborators from multiple developing regions that will contribute with their perspective on needs, opportunities, and bottlenecks, thus enhancing the tool's transferability. Next, please. During the preliminary implementation phase, we will adapt an agile process for producing wireframes and mockups in iterative consultation cycles with our stakeholder representatives. The goal is to make sure that end users' needs are met. From Michael's opening speech, we really appreciate having also Astrid's support and guidance in this process. Following that, we will proceed to the implementation of a prototype demonstrator that will integrate existing tools and real data so as to prove the feasibility of our approach. The development phase, lasting approximately 9 months, will mobilize all Loop4 LDN collaborators on their areas of expertise and will produce the first full-fledged version of Loop4 LDN. Starting with its architectural specification, it will continue with its development and testing, its validation through piloting sessions with end users, and finally its publishing and deployment along with documentation material for developers, end users, and the organization of capacity building activities. Thank you.
I would hand over to Sarah, please.
Yes. Sorry, I was muted. Thank you, Pythagoras, for your presentation. I will now open the floor to our experts for any questions they may have. I see that we have, while we wait for the expert, we have a question or a comment rather from an attendee in our Q&A. I see this more as a general question or comment, and therefore I would propose that we park this for now and we address it after this speech, when we will have some space for general question and comments. This is the comment from Michela Izzo. But right now, I will give the floor to Mariam for her question to Pythagoras.
Thank you very much, Pythagoras. I acknowledge that you mentioned the issue of capacity building, and so my question would rather be a comment than probably a question. I think that in these modeling aspects, these are carried out in a project, as you had mentioned. You have an initial phase, you have an implementation phase, and so on. What I think is very important is that these projects also have an outreach vision in place, because it's not only about developing a tool for achieving LDN in integrated land use planning, but also in maintaining LDN work. And this really needs capacity building, and probably also guidance would need to be provided to the end users on how to carry on with the work after the project phase stops, and what capacities will probably continuously have to be developed in order to maintain this tool at a standard so that it can monitor LDN work. Thank you.
I fully agree with your comment, and this is why we have a partner whose namely ELD, whose main experiences and expertise tackles also capacity building around sustainable land management.
Ermias, you have the floor.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Yeah, my question is, I wonder why you bring so many tools together. It could be a little bit confusing when I see, like, you have economics of land degradation, you have options by context, you have workout and all these things. Don't you think it will make a little bit complicated on the existing tools? This is number one. And then number two, if I were you also, it would be really interesting to hear, have you made any kind of review of existing tools in different parts of the world and what exactly they lack? And then what is the most innovative part of you that you would like to really address that gap? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, for both questions. They are very much related, one and the other. The idea of Loop4 LDN is very simple, and its simplicity, it's very simple. It says that if you have a strong database of good practices for land management, and if you have the ability to understand similarities contextual similarities for different regions, then we can combine those different tools so as to build one tool that has the ability to project good practices to other areas that have not been tested in. And this was the idea that was the birth of Loop for LDN, because on one hand, we have VOCAT, which is a strong knowledge base of good practices, and we have GOC, which is a tool that can identify contextual similarities between different regions across the globe. So obviously, we are referring to the different tools because the different tools fits a different piece in the same puzzle. And what we say is that obviously it will not be intuitive, it will not be a good tool to set up just a pipeline of different tools and say to experts that are not scientists in the domain that now you need to use 3 or 4 different tools that have been designed for something totally different. And this is exactly why we propose Loop for LDN, an easy, intuitive enough tool that will build over existing standardized initiatives and tools that are maintained by themselves. So this is how we address also the sustainability issue of what we propose, but targeting our stakeholders, which definitely are not the scientists, which definitely they want solid, grounded scientific results, but they have other things to solve rather than the scientific measurements. And this is why behind the scenes, we have the different tools. Our goal during the first phase is to prove that this is feasible, that these different tools can be combined together. All the information flow can pass from another tool to from one tool to another, grounding scientifically the end results. And then we will start with a 9 months period of implementation of the intuitive tool that targets end users, with all these different tooling being in the background, totally hidden from the eyes of a user who will have only one interface to work with.
Thank you very much. I think we can move on to questions from the jury members, and I will give the floor to Doug.
Okay, thank you. Again, interesting presentation. I had to step out just for a couple of minutes, so maybe you covered this and I missed it, but one of the impacts that we are looking for in these proposals is the demonstration of the use of appropriate data sets to a specific concrete use on the ground. Can you go over again the specific use case that you're proposing here?
Okay. I think we covered that part when I was referring to the information flow. We start from trend depths, so the user will have the ability to examine past and current land degradation, and then he will have the ability to select from the database of VOCAT, sustainable land management approaches that fit in the area of interest. And based on the the question is how the different micro decisions when solving the bigger problem of how I can plan, that those decisions require scientific knowledge, can be made from someone who is not a scientist, for someone who is not an expert on the field. This is the main question that we try to address. And this is why we introduce GOC, and we say, okay, if you are interested in this area, in this region, because Trends Earth, you see that in Trends Earth, the current situation goes has this state. Using the results of GOC, you can identify other regions that have similar contexts that have the same characteristics. And for those regions, when connecting with VOCAT, you can receive good practices that were applied in other regions that have the same characteristics with the region that you are interested in. And then the idea is that you will have a sort of simulation of how, by applying a good practice that was applied in place A, what the effect will be in place B, which is the place of the area of our interest. And this is made in a way which is intuitive to the user, hitting the complexity of the tools, but without hiding the information. So you will have definitely access to all the information that has to do with what the good practice is, how it was applied, what was the input, the output, the results of that, the areas, and so on. So this is the flow. And obviously, in order to validate this, we need to simulate this flow before the starting of the project, so as to be sure that what in theory looks simple, in practice with the use of the different toolings and the different databases, which is not so simple software-wise, is feasible enough.
Thank you very much, Pythagoras. I see that we would have one more question from Alex, and Claudio is also asking me if he can complement the answer. However, unfortunately, we ran out of time for this proposal. And to be fair with all the teams, I think it is better if we close the question and answer session here. You are already welcome to provide any additional information or to make any other question to the team as a jury member or an expert in the follow-up phase before we start with the evaluation. So I would now hand it over to Michael for to bring us towards the end of this session.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Sarah, and thank you to all of our presenters and to all of our questioners. We really appreciate your contributions here. Just in general now, what remaining questions do you have? Please, we can get to these on the platform later on, or any open questions that you have. You can use the Q&A as an attendee or the text chat just as a kind of note-taking tool as to what questions you have that are still remaining. We won't be able to get to all of the answers verbally right now due to time constraints, but just so we don't lose those questions, please take a note in the question and answer session or in the text chat.
Michael, we had a comment more than a question from Nicola Izzo, which is of a general nature, and maybe I'd like to invite one of our working group 3 team lead to take it up if possible, because I think it connects pretty well with the aim of working group 3. She's saying, Michela is saying that we are seeing numerous tools which pretend to guide decision maker towards LDN. Nevertheless, it's not clear how a decision maker would be guided through the process of choosing a specific tool with respect to others. Probably he or she would need a tool to compare the result from different tools and softwares. So I think as GEO LDN initiative here, we have a role to play in guiding decision makers on how to make use of different tools which are being developed by the community. And I would like, if possible, that either Alex or Neil provide their perspective on this. If I can.
Sure, definitely. I can start, and then obviously, Neil, if you'd like to add. Yeah, definitely an excellent question. And to some extent, it's a bit hard to answer relative to all of these tools, given, of course, they're all still in development, so we don't know the ultimate functionalities yet. But part of the intent of Working Group 3, as was mentioned at the outset, is to promote broader collaboration and the development of an ecosystem of tools to support achievement of LDN. And so necessarily, we'll have a range of tools, given that different tools will have different strengths and different contexts, which I think is what this question is getting at. So certainly through Working Group 3, I think there's a need for, whether it's a matrix or some sort of simple aid to help decision makers understand the relative strengths and weaknesses of each tool, whether it's more around monitoring, more around implementation, integration of different local data sets, et cetera. There's obviously varying components that we might see there. So certainly it's something that Working Group 3 can assist.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah, that's exactly right. So every tool has its particular strength and weakness, and usually we find for modeling complex systems that it's a really good idea to have several models running at the same time and know how to assess the similarities and the differences between them. There's really no substitute at all for knowing the landscape in which the model is being applied to. That's the best indicator. You'll know if you know your landscape and how that's likely to behave and the types of changes that are going on there. You'll know whether a model is giving you an answer that's reasonable or not. And that's why we've been so strong in our recommendations to really integrate with those end users as closely as possible. At the same time, you have to start somewhere. And so what we're doing is we're saying at this stage, those kind of trade-off assessment tools to identify the best options to achieve neutrality really don't exist anywhere conveniently, or at least not quite in the context of what we're trying to achieve here. And so we start somewhere, and as part of the modeling process, and certainly as part of the implementation of any tool that we develop, you'll need to be a fairly thorough, documentation around the tool, describing the potential limitations and ensuring that the outputs of the model are interpreted in the right context. So that's a question. I think this issue is a really important one. I think it pertains to sort of the use of any model for modeling a real world situation. And I think what we've got here today, I just do want to say, I said at the start that every entrant to this competition had a different perspective on the problem, and I'm sure we've picked that up tonight. Everyone's got a little bit of a different feel for how to do this. And so there's some fantastic options out there, and let's see which ones of these we can turn into something that is really useful for people around the world.
If I may, just a quick note for all the audience, really, to really encourage you to use the chat box to also add comments. If you have specific comments to specific proposals, please remember to identify the letter. But please go ahead and express your ideas as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and thank you, Anna, for that. Yes, please do that now. We're going to be also moving on to get your feedback in the chat. So please, if you do have a comment, remaining question, please put it in the chat now. And we're going to move on right now to wrapping up. Yes, Sarah?
There is a hand up from Mariam.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Marianne, sorry.
Thank you very much. I think the last comments made just now by Neil and some others are absolutely crucial. A ministry is not waiting for the tool. Yeah, so the tool has to look into what ministries are already using. They usually like using what they are already aware of and what they know, and they want to get that, get a tool which they somehow realize is important in the context of their existing tools. And this would mean that any capacity building means would have to consider also the ministerial level to bring to their attention the different tools, the advantages of a tool and how to use it. And the next question which I have is, if there are different tools which will be available and which a country may want to use, one would also have to think about the comparability of the results emerging from these tools, because after all, land degradation neutrality, SDG 15.3, strives to achieve a land degradation neutral world. And this scale may also need to be very important in the further discussions on the tools. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marion. I'd like to commend all of you for we're doing pretty good time-wise, unusual for with a group of so many scientists and creative people all together. I do anticipate that we'll go on for a little bit over time, like 4 minutes or so, just so you're aware of that. But in general, thank you all for being so disciplined. And to our wrap-up now. Just to give you a look forward as to what is coming up, of course, we hope to see a lot of our presenters here today in the sneak preview workshop on the 10th of November. We're very excited about that upcoming event, and we're sure you are in suspense and excited as well about that. And then, of course, as you see there in January, we're not sure of the date exactly yet. The winner will be the winner or winners will be presented, and they'll be able to present their full ideas here in the demo and be awarded. Just some feedback for us right now in the text chat, please. How did you enjoy today's session? What did you find? What did you like? What can we improve on? Please give us some feedback in the text chat very briefly. What did you enjoy? What can we improve on? Either or both, whatever you find most fitting for your from your perspective in the text chat now. What aspects did you like and what can we improve on? And the text chat, of course, you have to open that if it's not open already, clicking on that text chat bubble. And be spontaneous. You don't have to formulate a kind of formal long sentence or anything like that. Just keywords are very helpful as well. What did you like? What can we improve? Okay, thank you for your comments in the text chat. You can continue to post those in there. Thank you. Great, thanks very much. And yeah, let's go on to express our thanks. But we thought we would not prepare a thank you slide because our gratitude just wouldn't fit on a thank you slide. So this is not a thank you slide. All of our appreciation for your great ideas, your pitches, and also for the attendees, your undivided attention, your perceptive questions, it wouldn't all fit on a thank you slide. So we're looking forward to the sneak preview, as you are as well, I think. And just a reminder to get in touch with us. If you have any additional feedback, any questions, or just want to get in touch. And I thank all the panelists, the experts, the jury, the attendees, who am I leaving out? The presenters. Thanks a lot for today. And we're sure there will be some baseballs flying way up there. So I think, yeah, I think we can be in agreement that the pitches were very successful. And yeah, good luck to all of you, and goodbye for now.
If I can add, Michael,
yes.
See you all for the afternoon session. There was just now a question in the chat. If there is an afternoon session, yes, it's starting at 2 p.m. Central European time. So see you later.
Thank you all. See you soon.
Bye-bye, everybody.